You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves fade late in this one against the Nuggets. Too many missed opportunities, 123-112. That's your final. Wolves moved to 8-5 now on the year. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, thanks to you guys, now the #1 podcast network around. That's Jack Borman, Wolves expert, NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at Jared Borman13. Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. And, of course, follow our guy, Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show. And remember to like and subscribe. Find all the video, by the way, on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel and, of course, all the audio wherever you find your podcast. Lots to get into here, Jack. Nas Reed's breakout game. And then I want to ask you a little bit about the blended lineups. Feels like they've been struggling with that up to this point this year. But just off the top, like we always do, you always got to buckle in for this matchup, man. One of the best rivalries in the game right now. Nobody's beat the Nuggets more in the past 5 years than the Wolves. But regardless of that, it's just always a grind, back and forth battle, it feels like. Tonight was no different. Back and forth for pretty much 40 minutes, I'll say, straight until that final stretch. 23 lead changes, I believe, was the final tally. But a lot of missed opportunities tonight that they're going to want back, especially around the rim, it felt like. I want to ask you about that. But Nuggets build that 10-point lead, midway through the fourth quarter, managed to hold on. Lots of stuff to go over. But I just want your big picture, kind of 60-second knee-jerk reaction to kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, this Wolves team played on the second night of a back-to-back. Denver hasn't played since Wednesday, in which Jokic went for 55 points, 25 in the first quarter of that game. And it certainly looked like that early. I mean, Denver wanted to get out and run, but you thought that would kind of be, evened out a little bit by, Denver was without Christian Brown, who's going to miss 6 weeks with an ankle sprain, and Cam Johnson, their big offseason acquisition, who's out with a bicep injury. And so you thought that would kind of net things out. But again, I think, one of the Wolves' big issues has just been these blended lineups this season, right? I think for Minnesota, if they have either 4 or 5 starters on the floor, they're elite. They're second in net rating in both of those situations at plus 24 with 4 starters on the floor and plus 23 with all 5 starters on the floor. But they dropped to 26th with 3 starters on the floor, 16th with 2 starters on the floor, and 25th with only 1 starter on the floor, which you get some of those lineups too. And Denver, conversely, they're the best team in the league with 2 starters on the floor. They're the best team in the league with 3 starters on the floor. They're the best team in the league with 4 starters on the floor. So those blended lineups just really struggled against Denver, who, their blended lineups tonight were a little bit different, right? Because they're down 2 starters and had to put Peyton Watson and Tim Hardaway Jr. in the starting lineup. And you got to give those guys credit. They came up in mid plays and situations, especially when Jokic was off the floor, that I think kind of tilted this thing for Denver. And then for Anthony Edwards, right, it was really kind of his second off night of the season. Again, obviously the other one being his first game back from injury against the Knicks. But I think for Ant, it was just his inability and Dante's inability to be able to get going from 3 in a situation where this Nuggets team played a decent amount of zone tonight. And you would have liked to see those two be able to at least shoot it over the top of it and shoot them out of the zone a little bit to kind of soften the perimeter defense, allow them to get some more favorable matchups against man defense. But that just didn't necessarily happen tonight. And the Wolves just didn't have enough to overcome Nuggets team that got really strong contributions from their big 3 and then from Tim Hardaway Jr. as well.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
So many ebbs and flows in this one, Jack. Again, up until that 7-8 minute mark of the fourth quarter, it felt like down 12 early, for example. Wolves rally all the way back. They take the first quarter 31-29. They're up 5 at half. And then, that always so important third quarter, especially for this Wolves team, felt like it was there for the taking. But Wolves just, couldn't take advantage for what reason? Biggest turning point in this one. When was it and why?
Yeah, I think it was the middle part of that third quarter. Things got really helter-skelter for the Nuggets. They missed a bunch of shots. They were turning the ball over, just kind of got sloppy, and the Wolves just weren't able to score on the other end of the floor. It felt like it's a situation where instead of it being kind of even, the Wolves should have been able to run away and get on a little 7-8, 10-0 run and build a cushion, but they just weren't able to do that. And I think when you're unable to do that against teams especially in situations where Nikola Jokic is on the floor and Jamal Murray is not on the floor, those should be good opportunities for you to really take advantage on the offensive end of the floor. And the Wolves just weren't able to do that. They weren't able to knock down open threes in those situations. I think, we looked from, just kind of the middle part of that third quarter, specifically, the Timberwolves went through kind of a dry spell from three. And really the only offense that they had was Anthony Edwards kind of getting his mid-range footwork going and finding the front of the rim, getting Peyton Watson up off his feet. And I think the other part of it too for the Timberwolves was just that, they, I think, just kind of didn't necessarily have the most efficient fast break offense that they normally are accustomed to having. I think their spacing on transition and semi-transition possessions just wasn't very good, and they didn't handle passes. And there were just a lot of just tough finishes, I guess, where they kind of lost control of the ball going up, got caught in the air, things of that nature that I think just inhibited them from building a lead that we're used to being able to see this team build when they do get stops. And I think that was just it. I think when you leave yourself too thin of a margin for error against this Denver Nuggets team, it's just not enough. And I think, we saw that at the start of the fourth quarter, right? The Wolves were able to get back into it, scored 4 points in the final 15 seconds of that third quarter to get within one. But, then Aaron Gordon, knocks down shots. And then, Jokic kind of gets into the game, and the Nuggets draw a bunch of fouls and are able to kind of get in the bonus and play with a lot of physicality and got to the free throw line to kind of stem the tide and keep the Wolves at bay. So I think, again, it just, when you're playing against a guy like Nikola Jokic and two sidekicks and Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, who are as efficient playing off of him as they are, I think you just got to build yourself, a bigger margin for error, especially going into the fourth quarter. And the Wolves have normally been able to do that against this Nuggets team, but tonight they just weren't able to do that because they weren't able to convert those stops in the middle part of the third quarter into enough scores.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Give me your game MVP for the Nuggets. Jokic only 14 points, plus minus a -1, by the way. But also, who stood out, I guess, for the Wolves as well? Who's taken home the game MVP for the Wolves? Was it kind of pretty cut and dry tonight as far as that goes, or kind of tough to pick?
No, I think you could go one of two ways, but I'm going to go with Julius Randle just because I think the physicality that he played with down the stretch of that third quarter, I think was just really important. And it was an off night for Anthony Edwards, like we talked about. For people that don't know, there was a league-wide stats outage. So we don't have any final score stats here in the final box. So we don't know necessarily what they ended up with. But yeah, Julius, last I checked, had 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, and was 7 of 10, 6 of 8 inside the arc, and got to the free throw line a good amount of times. I just thought that he played with requisite physicality against the Nuggets team that was really bringing it in the front court with Gordon and Jokic specifically, and then with Valanciunas as well. And I thought, you just kind of need to fight fire with fire in some of those situations. And I think Jokic has kind of gotten off of his game a little bit when you're able to be really physical with him inside. And I think Randle did a really strong job of taking advantage of the fact that the Nuggets just don't really have any rim protection at all. And I thought the way that Julius got off the ball on the perimeter and then got it back and was able to play off the catch, get into the lane, and then finish. And when he didn't finish, more often than not, he got fouled. So I think that, those are the types of moments when Julius Randle really can, I think, be at his most important for this team, just because he brings a level of physicality that no one else on the team is capable of bringing. And that includes Anthony Edwards. I think there's just, when you're able to go through a guy like Jokic, you're able to go through his chest and finish inside. It's pretty impressive. And I think just kind of sets a physical tone. And a lot of times, how many times on the show we talked about Julius Randle's scoring and physicality kind of keeping the Wolves hanging around, and kind of buying time for Ant or Dante or Nas to have that, just huge wave of scoring that tonight just didn't come. And so, I thought Julius was strong, and I thought his defense was better than last night, which was not very good. But there wasn't anybody out there for the Wolves who was playing a whole lot of defense outside of Jaden McDaniels tonight.
Stat correction, Jokic with 19, not 14. Props to Random Planet for that shout out. Plenty more deep dive, including Nas Reed's coming out party tonight. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and go, where'd my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment. So easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Not just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending. It's all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and instead you start building some wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You're getting 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your entire first year. This episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, without a doubt, most fun I have playing daily fantasy because you can win up to 25 times your money this NBA season, and why I love it. So easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, points, rebounds, assists, 3-pointers, you name it, they got it. Plus, Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay, quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. You're getting a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. 100% bonus match up to $100. This episode also brought to us by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you gotta, might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built's changing the game by turning your rent into things you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you're in flexible points. Those points, they can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, you name it, they got it. Turn your rent into rewards and start making points around your neighborhood. Go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the link so they know we sent you. All right, before we get into what we'll be talking about, just some quick hitters here. Let's start here. 2 words, Nas Reed. Did it always feel like a matter of time before he kind of busted out like this tonight? Like, I guess my question is, was his lack of efficiency up to this point sustainable, right? I guess because you knew he had it in him. He just had to kind of find it. And tonight it felt like it just kind of all came together. And opposite end too here, I got to ask you, Rudy Gobert, rough night all the way around. What stuck out the most from that kind of good and bad with those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for Nas Reed. I think you could kind of look at these last two, the last 26 hours as a turning point for Nas Reed. I think, last night only had 12 points, but impacted the game all over the place. He had 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 stocks last night, and then tonight in the first half had 17 points, made four corner threes, which is really important. And I think that element of the Wolves offense has really been missing, especially lately. I mean, on the season, the Wolves just 36% from the corners. That's 16th in the NBA. League average is about 37.5%. But above the break, they've been shooting 40%, which is best in the league, whereas the league average is only 35%. So the Wolves are kind of flipped there. And the last 2 games, the Wolves are 3 of 19 from the corners. But Nas was 4 of 4 by himself in the first half. So I think that element is really important, especially when Rudy's out there. I think you just open up more skip pass opportunities in the kind of the spread pick and roll that they like to run now with Ant and Rudy in there. And I just think that Nas being able to space the corners is also really important when Julius has the ball in the middle of the floor. And so I think that just opens a lot more up for this offense, which has been really good. I mean, it's been the 4th best offense in the NBA so far this season by offensive rating. And so I think for Nas, I think just his ability to, kind of make up for the fact that, Rudy didn't have a great night and Dante didn't have a great night. So I think, just being able to kind of have that interchangeable guy where maybe on a night where Rudy doesn't have it, you can also feel free to, extend the run that Nas has, which they did in the first half, right? Rudy had a really tough first half. I think he had 3 fouls, 3 turnovers, and 3 rebounds in that first half. Only played 10 minutes, was in foul trouble, obviously. But for Finchie to be able to just let Nas run when he's on a heater like that, I think is really important and something that I think just kind of opens things up a little bit more for the Wolves, starting 5, and doesn't, I guess, quite put as much pressure on a starting lineup that has scored the most points in the NBA over their last 5 games. So I think, Nas coming out, I think, again, Chris Finch said it last night after the game, which I thought was really, really kind of a prescient point. He said that the bench has been focused too much on production and not enough on energy. And I think, Nas Reed has just been doing a much better job of bringing better energy these last two games. And I think, that's just going to be really important again, because this Timberwolves bench, the last couple of seasons has been, just really a positive force for this Timberwolves team. And I think it's, been kind of an Achilles heel a little bit so far this season. So I think, the more that Nas can be able to play and on nights when Rudy does, just really not have it. And he didn't have it defensively either. Right. And just seemed to be, in kind of a bitter mood, a sour mood out there on the court. And that was pretty evident. And so I think Nas just gives you a lot more optionality and, might honestly, if he's going to sit in the corner and shoot threes and bomb away, he can play the three too. And the Wolves can be big defensively. So I just think that it just opens things up for the Wolves. And I think takes pressure off of not only other guys on the bench, but the starting five as well.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Trying to buy you a second or two. Quick tea for Jack, who's calling an audible over there with the camera. Here's what we'll be talking about, or you tell me. Could this be then, I guess, the kind of the turning point for Nas Reed here, Jack? Like, because if it is, I mean, you just laid out a beautiful kind of blueprint here. How much, right? How big of a catalyst he is for the Wolves off the bench when things are clicking for him. So all of a sudden the Wolves get that much needed kind of boost in the arm, I guess, off the bench that, like you said, they've been sorely missing.
Yeah, no question about it. And then I think too, it's also, the second night where Tim Hardaway Jr. has gotten off. So I think that's kind of something that you're going to be talking about is, it's those types of players have been, thoroughly outplaying guys like Mike Conley. And unfortunately, it's the second time that Tim Hardaway Jr. has outplayed Dante DiVincenzo, right? Tim Hardaway Jr. has two quarters this season where he scored at least 10 points. Both of them have been third quarters at Target Center.
That's fun.
So, yeah, it's very fun. And unfortunately, Dante has really struggled in both of those games. And so I think, again, it's just kind of this whole conversation about being able to find something off the bench. And I think, the Wolves are kind of missing TJ Shannon. I know that TJ's had a tough start to the year, and we don't necessarily know how much of that you can attribute to this bone bruise he has in his foot or just, if it was more mental or whatever the case was. But it just felt like a night, especially tonight, where Nuggets don't have a lot of rim protection, not a lot of, strong perimeter defenders. They played a lot of zone to try to keep Ant and Julius out of the middle of the floor. Having a guy that can just run past everybody and TJ off the dribble, I think would have been nice to have. And so I think, again, if this is a turning point for Nas Reed and he can kind of carry the bench until TJ comes back, he's going to get reevaluated in about a week. So he's going to miss the next, 2-3 games here at minimum. But I think that could really, just kind of help buoy the Wolves bench until TJ gets back. And then TJ and Nas hopefully can kind of create that scoring tandem that we were anticipating, during the early part of the season. And then you can, just kind of layer in Mike Conley scoring some threes, Jalen Clark, maybe giving you 6-7 points here or there. And who knows what's going to happen with Rob Dillingham, who struggled again tonight, as did Mike Conley, as did Dante, as did Rudy. So I just think Nas can kind of be a trump card coming off the bench. And, how often the Wolves are going to be able to play that, I think is going to be an important storyline to follow here. But, obviously it's been just a hellish, 6 weeks, 2 months for Nas Reed and his family. And on a personal note, I was very happy for Nas that
no doubt
he seems to be kind of getting back in a rhythm, and the crowd is showing him just an immense amount of love. And, I think, not only the Wolves need it, but I think Nas needs it just on a personal level. So good to see him play well. But, again, you'd like to see the Wolves start to kind of stand up and punch hard pretty well against some of the best teams in the league. But they haven't been able to do that so far, for a myriad of reasons. But I think at some point this Timberwolves team is going to have to play really well against one of the better teams in the NBA. And we'll see when that happens.
0-2 now this year against Denver, both at home. Great stuff as always. T-Wolves fade late in this one, 123-112. That's your final versus Denver. 8-5 now on the year. Much love to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack too at JRBorman13. We'll catch you Monday. The 4-game homestand continues. Dallas up next. That's a 7 p.m. tip. Until then, signing out.